Hello, and welcome to my presentation, My Socializing Agents and Me. My name is Levi Burnfin, and I'm a ninth grade speech and average teacher at Garden City High School. So we'll start with the first of 12 socializing agents, my family, obviously a big one. So first, we need to talk about my immediate family, my wife Becca, who's also a teacher, and my three sons, ages 5, 3, and 1 month. So it's been a busy summer. I also have my ethnicity, obviously, is white, um, and my family's background is from Western Europe. So obviously, those have particular effects on my socialization. That also brings me to my privileges, my big things that have shaped the way I am and who I am. I am cisgender and straight. I'm a white and male. All three of those things, or four of those things, mean I have a tremendous amount of privilege in this country that maybe others do not have. Trans, gay, bisexual, different races, female, non-binary. Those privileges have obviously played a big part in who I've become and who I strive to be going forward. And for the last several years, especially now as a teacher, where I will an authority figure for many students who do not enjoy those privileges. And that sexuality, that my race, all that plays a part. And I need to be cognizant of that as I interact with these students. Obviously, my education, a little bit of everything here. I went to a community college, and then a 4-year state school in California, and now at Fort Hays State, where I'm working on my master's as well as the transition to teaching program. All those experiences, Chaffey and Cal State San Bernardino, in particular, just because those are on-site schooling, have really shaped who I am. Going to community college, you meet a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. There's a lot of poverty there as well. Cal State San Bernardino state school, that was obviously more expensive than a community college, but it was still pretty inexpensive. It was also kind of a commuter school, so that brought a lot of different people from Southern California to one place as well. And the quote there for Cal State San Bernardino, their kind of slogan was "From here, go anywhere." And I thought that kind of fit just because of my path of around this country, which we'll discuss later. Big part of those education before we get to legend, excuse me, is languages, and we'll talk about languages here in Garden City as well. But those are largely Hispanic public schools. And even though I picked up absolutely zero Spanish, which still haunts me to this day, but there was a lot of other languages as well, and we'll discuss what languages I have in my classroom in a little bit here as well. Religion, a little bit of nothing. I put that there just because I do not have a church affiliation. I'm more agnostic than anything now. But when I was growing up, we went to an evangelical church and then a Catholic church for a little bit, and then eventually United Methodist Church before I kind of fell out of having a church affiliation in my older teens and have not gone back. But obviously, those places had a big impact on my perception, discussing how to view humanity and how to interact with other humans, and maybe the lack of empathy that some of those churches, they preach, they didn't necessarily follow. So that really changed my perception a little bit, and socialized me to being who I am today, for sure. My community, a little bit of everything, again, just like school, which is my education. Up to 40 languages here in Garden City, Kansas. It's the most diverse city in Kansas. We have a lot of refugees, and we have a meat packing plant that brought a lot of refugees and a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds to earn a living wage. Thankfully, Tyson does pay relatively well, and so that helps our city for sure. And it's really blossomed Garden City into an amazing hotbed of just different languages and different people and different ideas, different perspectives, and it's wonderful to be here. But all those languages also end up in my classroom, and interact with as a daily basis. And so that's definitely socialized me even more than growing up in Southern California did, where um, you know most expect often you were speaking English. Here you can hear anything from obviously Spanish to Mandarin to Laonese to a bunch of different languages within a few minutes of your classroom. My neighborhood, fifth socializing agent here we'll talk about. So where my students live, that's pretty much where I live. That's kind of the nice thing about Garden City. There's not a ton of segregation. There's kind of a lot of neighborhoods, upper class neighborhoods right next to working class neighborhoods, right next to apartment complexes. Just because of the size of our city, it doesn't allow much segregation, thankfully. So most of my neighborhood is comprised of single family homes, so middle class. But there's working class neighborhood right next to ours. Just to the south of us is the largest Somalian apartment complex. And the west of us is a trailer park that's mostly poverty level or close to uh, for families. So those two things obviously have a big impact on how our neighborhood works um, and and the cultures and different people I get to interact with here in the neighborhood. Obviously, and that social class has a big impact as well. So my peer group, this is kind of go all over the place here. I expected now my peer group is now made up of a bunch of teachers. This is on you can see on the screen. This is a picture of my wife and our friend Hillary, mutual friend Hillary, and we went to go see the eclipse in Nebraska. That's where this picture came from. But yeah, so we have a lot of teacher friends. But growing up in California, my peer group was extremely diverse there as well. Got a lot of different perspectives, um, we, a lot of different cultures and foods that I was introduced to there that made me comfortable with those things and really helped me uh, be comfortable with them now as well. So we'll talk about the seventh one here, electronic media. So what would you call extremely online? I spend too much time on the internet. You can blame my prior career, which again we'll get into here in a little bit, as a sports journalist, that kind of forced me to be online, uh, just to be aware of news and stuff like that in my region. But extremely online. I read a lot of digital articles from newspapers in particular, and spend a lot of my day on Twitter, and that's for sure shaped who I am. And we'll talk about Twitter and the technology a little bit later, but that shaped who I am and my perspectives and what I believe and how I believe people should uh, perceive things and act and come together for sure. That has definitely played a big part in it. Uh, Reading anything from Washington Post to the Wire. I mean, it just anything and everything I can get my hands on the online. I'll read. Sports has definitely played a big part in who I am as well. Um, I mean, they've been involved with them all my life. I started baseball, t-ball when I was 3. One of my earliest memories is hitting a home run, but wasn't really a home run. It was just a kind of I hit it and then they just had everybody run around the bases. But at the time, I thought it was a home run, and it's definitely one of my earliest memories is playing sports. And I played sports pretty much all my youth into high school. Did not play after high school, but I did become a sports reporter, which obviously sports played a big life there. I was a sports reporter for 8 years, so covering athletes and coaches and recruiting and high school athletes and just all over the place. And truthfully, that's led me to Garden City, Kansas. That's why I first came here, is because I was a sports reporter. So obviously, sports and the teamwork and all that has really played a big part in how I interact with people. The arts. So I'm not what you would call the artsy type. I dance a little bit like Elaine Minnis here. Can't play an instrument, can't sing, but I do love museums and I love plays. And those two things I really like to do with my wife as well. And so those two things we do, and we are introduced to different cultures and different artifacts, and at museums, obviously, and we love that historical type stuff. Um, and plays really, that creative side of plays, and people singing just incredible songs while displaying incredible emotion. That for sure has had a big impact. That's for sure. Um, Print media. So, as I discussed, I was print media. It brought me to Garden City. I was a sports reporter, worked for the Garden City Telegram, and I also worked for the Glasgow Courier. Geographic locations, obviously, so Southern California, giant, diverse, a lot of people. To Glasgow, Montana, which was rated the most rural town in the contiguous United States. It was 3.5 hours from a town bigger than it, and it was itself only 3,000 people. My high school was bigger, so that switch was extremely um, jaw dropping to go from Southern California to Glasgow, Montana, and now to Garden City, which is a bigger town than Glasgow, but still just as rural. So obviously those changes in geographical location has brought me into even more different perspectives. For example, California I didn't really understand how hunting worked, and Montana I got a really big introduction into hunting and how that works. And I never went hunting myself, but I covered it as a reporter, and I understood the intricacies of it, and also the luck of it with not only finding the animals, but the lotteries for bucks and elk and stuff like that. um, and so that broadened my horizons of how to look at rural life as well, for sure. Work experiences, so I discussed that a little bit, and that leads me pretty quickly into here. Like I said, I worked at or I went to CSUSB, and I worked as a sports reporter for the college newspaper there. And I got a job at the Glasgow Courier, which was a small weekly in Glasgow, Montana. I was there for about 18 months, and then took my job at the Garden City Telegram, covering the junior college and then the high school, uh, up until last year. Last year was my first year teaching, and so that's where I'm at now. Finally, technology, the last agent we'll talk about a little bit here. Like I said earlier, very online. I started playing video games when I was really young, and that opened up another friend group for sure. My best friend and I played video games together when we were very, very young. Then social media came around. I'm old enough to remember MySpace, and the top 16, and top 32 friends, or whatever it was. Then Facebook and Twitter, and definitely on Twitter a lot now. Um, and that to my iPhone. Used to be you had to go home to your desktop or whatever to check your MySpace, see what was going on with MySpace, and now it's just on palm of your hand for sure. So that, just like my students, I'm pretty. My phone is pretty important to me, and I have it on me pretty much all the time. So that is most of my socializing agents, and I appreciate you listening, and thank you very much.